This is one of the first spots I've ever drawn to on this property. Way, way back. Like when I was like 20. You used to be able from here see the parking lot. All this buckthorn wasn't here, it was grass and cedars. And you could see the cars. And one of the very largest bucks I've ever shot in my life, I shot out of that willow tree. They would bet on the private where there's little bunches of trees. And obviously I couldn't go over and look at the beds, right? But they come through to here. Matter of fact, you see a trail right there coming through. And they come through here and just move through here to the road and across. And they'd be on public for about 7,500 yards. Not intercept them. So the buck that I shot here bottomed out a 300-pound scale dressed. By far the largest buck I ever shot. There was two bucks that came out that day, a 10-pointer like 140 class and that big buck. I saw that buck from the parking lot, or driving past, coming through here in an evening, and then started watching and seeing him on a regular basis. And then I shot him the first day I hunted. I just stood on a limb on that tree. I think the limb's actually fallen now. But if you saw, like when we were back here looking at that rub, it was kind of interesting. That was obviously a big deer that did that. Why would you hunt in there? I mean, the deer aren't bedding in there. They're bedding in this. This is your open shot. This is where you'd be, right? So literally, while I'm sitting there, I'm watching people one after another access in and out over there. And you get deer underneath you here. And the deer are just looking over at the people as they go by. But there's constantly people not even knowing you're right here. Now, this gets hunted a lot. Back in those days, nobody hunted near the road, period. And these were always the hot spots. When you get outside of this area where people don't know beast style, you still see that. You're from Michigan?
Wisconsin.
Somebody's from Michigan. So when I hunted Michigan, everybody was telling me, you can't do that overlooked stuff here. People hunt everywhere. It was especially true in Michigan. Especially considering most people put a stand up and they go to it. Like if they got another spot, they put a stand there. Nobody's putting a stand next to the road. You know what I mean? And wherever I go, the best spots always seem to be pretty much the easiest spots. People just walk right past it. The hardest, the worst spots are the in-between stuff. It's not remote and it's not overlooked. But this just got overlooked because of this corner, as you can imagine. Over the years, I've seen a lot of bucks come in and out of here. I hunted this lot. That was the only buck I ever chose to shoot here, but I've had a lot of them come out in that same pattern. You get to figure out that they're going to come out of the timber, because everything's underwater when you look at that. If it's growing a tree, it's got a dry spot. So where we see groups of trees would be where the bucks are bedded. Occasionally they came out of that patch of dogwood over there.
Specific to this spot, there's egg over there. You said they're coming this way. What's drawing them over there?
Egg.
There's also egg over there.
The main reason they come this way is because they know I can't hunt over there, so they come over here so I can shoot them. So they have it. They can get up and go that way too. One thing, when they're coming this way, this would be tore up. No, there's no rubs in here right now, probably because of that hunting pressure we just looked at. Yeah, but if you walk in here and check this, and you don't hunt it, you just got your scent here. So if there is a deer using it, some big bucks don't mark stuff. So a lot of cases, I just come throw a hunt at it. Because when you look back, some of my very biggest bucks, there was no sign at all. They're the kingpin. And when you're on public land like this, a lot of these public properties have one buck that's a mature buck. You got a lot of 2-year-olds, a lot of 1.5 years, but one mature buck. Nobody's competing with him. He doesn't have to rub all these trees. He doesn't have to mark it up.
So what drew you to this spot years ago? Whenever you
I saw a buck coming out.
You were driving by seeing him.
That buck, pretty much, is one of the ones that taught me to start looking at this kind of overlooked stuff.
You've seen him.
Right.
Got your eyes
I seen him driving by. But none of this dogwood was here. I mean, it's this buckthorn. This stuff grows really rapidly. 25 years ago, none of that was here. There's some poplars and some cedars, and you can see through this stuff. You know, it's still, you had to look, but you see through. Like I said, I could see my truck.
And
got
so
more.
you're accessing this through that trailer we just walked.
Yeah.
That's how
You were
always
out there,
walk.
so I just come right through this.
And
So that's a
get in
question
the
I get
wind.
asked a lot is about access. Because people are worried about hunting a spot a second time. Usually once you hunt this, it's done.
Yeah.
You got your scent in here, you know. What I have found is you can hunt a spot a couple days in a row real quick, because that deer might come in the next day or something and never have walked over it.
You may not be here, is what you're saying.
So a lot of times my morning accesses are kind of screwed up. I'll hunt it in the evening and come back and do it again in the morning and figure if that thing wasn't here in the evening, I know for sure he wasn't here all night. He's gonna come back in the morning if he comes back at all. So a night morning hunt is better than waiting a week after your scent's been on the ground. I think your scent is going to remain on the ground in a spot like this for a long time. And deer are, like if you walk up that trail, you'll see deer walk across in front of you. They have no mind of the human scent. You get human scent here, it's a whole different ballgame. It doesn't belong here.
Yeah. I see that at my place too.
Yeah.
You can be on that ATV trail, walk on it, they're okay with it. But soon as you're off of it.
Any place that has access trails, like I've hunted a lot of conservancies that give hunters access.
Right.
If you stay on the trails, you're fine. Like the human trails, and use those to navigate. Even if it takes me out of my way, I use those to navigate, and then a short jog in, and I never bump the deer out of there. I can't remember the name of the hunt. There's one video that I had that was really popular, that's really old, where I hunt down a big buck in a swamp, and I got a lot of feedback like, you can't hunt that much. You're pressuring that property. Obviously, there's a dead buck at the end of the video. But the reason I could do so much hunting in that property is because I used the tree huggers trails. You know, I could set up cameras on that trail too, and it wouldn't bother the deer. They were like used to that trail. I could hunt right over the top of the trail and hunt the same spot day after day, and I'd be okay. If I hunt 20 feet off that trail, it would bother them. It's about where you put the scent.
Yeah.
It's about that precise, hey? Like just 10, 20 yards off of the trail and
Yes.
they bugger out.
Yep. So,
So unique.
one case in point, I shot a very large non-typical when I was much younger. On Thanksgiving Day, the one I crawled up to. That buck, I knew where he was bedding. I watched him for 2 years bed there. I couldn't get near him. It was wide open. It was an old pasture where they didn't have cattle anymore, so it was mostly grass and brush. That deer would walk out of his bed and hit a farm access trail, like that everybody accessed. Everybody took that. It would hit that trail and walk right across, and I'd watch it with binoculars from a distance, do this constantly. And I'm like, how am I gonna get close to that thing? You literally have to lay in grass this high, you know? So one time I went in there and I walked in and I looked at his tracks going across, and I just took like from here to that creek off the trail in line with some cattails and looked at his tracks, and then walked back to the trail and kept going, just trying to in my head come up with some way to hunt him. I watched that deer with binoculars come out, hit my scent and freak out. Where I watched him every day come out and hit my scent into that road, didn't even put his nose down, just went over the top. It's where you put the scent.
Like, I really got it dialed down. Like you said, especially those mature deer, like you said, that's how they stay alive, right?
Right.
They-
So when you look at the deer I've killed, the majority of them after 5 years old have come from the very first time I've set a spot. I'll scout it in spring when they're not there, find where they live, and not come back until the timing is right, and then I kill them the very first time. And I can kill buck after buck in those spots, but they'll never be 5, 6, 7-year-old bucks. They seem to find that niche. So, vicely, if you look at the bucks that I got that are like the nice bucks, you know, 120, 130, 140, 2, 3-year-old bucks, most of those come from spots I have hunted before. But the mature bucks are like a whole different animal. They start getting, and that's probably not true on most of your private, but these deer, when I shoot them and they're 5, 6, 7 years old, they got arrow holes in them, they got bullets in them, they got wounds all over the place. So they're a whole different animal. They've gotten taught how to precisely bed, how to evade you, which in this environment makes it easier for you to pinpoint where they're bedding, because all you have to do is find where nobody goes. Which for most people seems really hard. For me, it's not. I just look at where do people not go? Right next to the road, you know, some vast area where there's no trees, that kind of stuff.
talked about being precise. So for this spot, the best would be a west or southwest wind in the afternoon. Would you hunt it reverse in the morning or not in the morning for here?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't hunt this. Well, you could because they come from across the street. I just have to have a different access, but you just don't want the wind blowing at them.
Yeah, so southwest.
You know, a lot of people think that they move in and out of bedding with the wind. What I see is they get up, move from point A to point B. But when they go to bed, they circle downwind a lot.
Okay.
So they might come in, like if the wind is blowing in your face here, or blowing off that way, they might circle around that way to come into their beds. But they do it pretty close to their beds, if that makes sense. But they tend to come in from the downwind side, not on a trail, which makes it harder to bed hunt in the mornings.
Yeah.
But in the evenings, the heavy trails you see going in and out of the bedding areas, that's the deer exiting. So then all you have to do is look at how many trails come out of the bedding area, and then what are they for? So you can figure out the timing. What are they doing? One might go to doe bedding, one might go to acorns, one might go to corn. What time of the year do they do each one of those, right?
Were you worried about your thermals at all in this situation, or were you checking them as you were going in?
Yeah, but you're right on top of the water here, so
Yeah.
you're pretty golden in that case, because generally it goes to the water and up.
Okay.
The reason I stopped here is I wanted to point out how how we look at this stuff. You look out over these cattails to see these trees here. See how they narrow to a point? Those points, whether they're good or not, is a whole different story. But they usually bed along those points. Where you'll find the bedding is like right where the trees bunch up, or where they're scattered into the cattails at the end of the point here. And then they'll go up and down those points, in and out both sides, right? And you'll see that all over these marshes. If you see an island, if you see land in a straight line, if you see any kind of point or finger coming off of it, and it doesn't take much. It could just be some bushes out into the cattails, showing there's a little higher ground there. That'll create bedding. Those are the spots where you'll find the bucks. You know, after you look at these beds long enough and you walk these areas enough, you'll be able to walk out and say, well, there'd be bedding right there. That would catch my eye immediately. Now that is kind of close to the parking lot, and that is getting far enough back where people start to hunt that kind of stuff. But it's the point that I'm trying to get you to look at.
It's the same concept in hill country with bridge point.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. It's ironic how similar it is.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
The difference in hill country is it's a little more wind specific.
Right.
Yep.
These deer will bed there no matter what the wind is.
Right.
What you'll see for a difference is, like if the wind is blowing that way, like if we had an east wind blowing right up that point,
Yeah.
you'd find those bucks bedded up further.
Push back.
Up where they can monitor with eyes.
Yeah. Okay.
When it's blowing down that point, they'll be in here monitoring with scent. You start to see these patterns over time where they're always monitoring you one way or another, and what they're doing is they're setting up a trap. So you look at that stuff, you think, why are they doing this? Because they can bed anywhere, they can lay down anywhere, right? They're laying down in there because they can monitor the direction you're going to come from. Nobody's going to jump into this water and walk up to you. Couldn't possibly do it. If you can come at them, you're going to come down that dry land, whether you're a coyote or you're a person or you're a wolf.
Right.
So over time, they've learned to adapt to that. So the older a buck gets, the more he locks into the bedding the right way. So the younger ones are the ones you'll find that just kind of bed stupid sometimes. Does anybody know why I would be drawn to this spot? You kind of alluded to it. Yeah, the oaks. So when you hunt hill country like you do, oaks can be a pain in the ass. They can, when they drop acorns, you can get bucks that won't come out of the bedding area. They'll just get up and feed.
It's like that's where the oaks are.
Right on the point. Yeah, they don't have to move far.
Yeah.
But in this terrain, they have to travel to the oaks. They don't just bed up on these high spots. They bed on the points, like we pointed out, right? There's no oaks on the points. That's going on to low, wet stuff, right? So the bucks are going to get up, or bedding down there, they're going to come into these oaks. Whenever I see pressure on this island, it's always right here. It's like people get in here and they think, I don't want to get my center on, they set up right here. Which to me is ridiculous. You got to think about how a deer comes onto an island, because they're going to get on, they're going to start feeding over there and maybe never make it to you. Or maybe end up over there, or, you know what I'm saying? So you narrow that focus down. It's the spokes of the wheel theory, for those of you who've followed the videos for years, that the further away from the bedding you get, the less likely you're going to be on the trail that deer's taking. He's going to spider off, right? And he's got to make it this far in daylight. And most young bucks will. Mature bucks don't move very far. Most of the ones I'm getting that are mature, I'm real close to their bedding. I hear them get up, see them. Maybe I'm 75 yards in this terrain. But when I kill them, it's dark. It's like edge of closing time. So you have to be on top of them things. That doesn't mean sometimes it ain't an hour before dark. But most of the time it's not. And if you're not hunting them, what they do most of the time, you're losing a lot of your percentage, your chance percentage.
And do you think after the early season, you know, after the opener, that starts getting pushed right at dark? You know, like the one you shot back here 4 years ago was a half hour before dark or whatever.
I don't know that that's...
As pressure sets in.
I think pressure kind of puts them where they belong to some degree, but the mature bucks just, they're not as impacted by pressure as the younger bucks. Or the younger deer. They seem to have a plan, and they just go to where the plan is with timing wise. They seem to, once they get to an older age, they seem to go right to the same spots every year, and they feel comfortable there. So I don't see them being that pressure. I think they're like that all the time. Like even now or in summer, those mature bucks are still bedded in some of those really secure spots, and where they don't need the safety. It's just how they bed, how they think, how they're wired. Well, like 24/7, not just during hunting season. Where the younger bucks are more, they seem like they freak out at pressure. All of a sudden, all the orange people come, right? On the other hand, if Wisconsin would like open gun season at noon, I think you'd kill a lot more deer. When you fill the woods up with you know, what is it, 800,000 people, and they all get into the woods a half an hour before daylight with their scent blowing all over the place. Every deer in the woods knows what's going on.
Yeah.
But I still see, if you get to one of these unpressured areas, which is where they live, those deer still move around. They just keep it in a little tight circle. It's a little small area they live in daylight. And a lot of times it's not what you'd expect. It's not just, you know, glowing with giant buck sign. You know, you have to be able to read terrain a lot. So it's about looking for these points. It's about looking for that terrain. Anybody else?
Yeah, so like when you're coming in here in the morning, I mean, since I've been 12, you know, we always, gun season, you're in there half hour before light. I mean, is there times where that's a mistake? You should be coming in at first light? Wind picks up a little bit?
I don't know if I was hunting in the morning, I'd be in there before light.
Okay.
I think deer are a little more forgiving of you before light, but that's not to say they don't know what's going on.
Right.
Not to mention you're hoping to get there before they come back. The trouble with that is a lot of these deer, I get to these bedding areas to hunt them in the morning, and I hear them blow and take off an hour before daylight.
Yeah.
Jump out of a bed. But in the evening, they all seem to get up before dark and move out. But some of them seem to bed before daylight. Or they're at least hanging in the area.
Yeah.
You know, like they get back to the area, they're in that area feeding their way in. And then it's so silent in the morning.
Right.
I tend to hunt a little further back from bedding in the mornings.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like if you're in hardwoods or something, up by us we got a mixture of both. I mean, it's almost impossible to sneak in close to bedding in the hardwoods when you got 4 inches of oak leaves on the ground. Like same thing for this. Like how would you get within 75 yards of these if they're on that point? I mean, they're going to hear you.
We're going to look at that.
Crunching through, right? I mean,
Not necessarily. We're going to look at that right now.
yeah, that's my biggest problem is access and the stuff, the places that we hunt on.
So in the morning, this probably would be where I'd set up. But if you came in here eating acorns, you can't, right?
Yeah.
So if you're thinking they're coming back to that bedding from somewhere else eating acorns, like over there, you could get in between them. But then you wouldn't get in here and walk towards the bedding, right? Because then they're going to hit your scent, right?
Right.
But in the evening, I'm just going to come straight through here, slide through here, and I'm going to follow this trail back to the bedding. So let's just follow that trail back like I do if I was setting up.
Okay.
And we'll take a look at, you know, what I'm seeing as I go.
So let's say you get here And as you come up onto here, you see fresh buck sign, nice big old rubs in here. You see a camera, but it's just a regular camera. It's not a cell camera. Are you immediately backing out of here and just calling it off?
First thing I do is get naked and dance.
It's just a situation we all deal with now.
A lot of buck sign. If that camera's been there for a long time, I still have a crack at that buck.
Yep.
But for the most part, if somebody's coming here and checking, or if it's a cell cam, that person's going to know that deer's there, and he's going to be monitoring it. He's going to be coming in here. I'm moving. I'm just going to keep moving. A lot of the sign you see is at night anyways.
Yep.
But in a situation like this, I mean, I can tell you right now, coming in here, I've come in here, and one time there's a pop-up blind right here with a camera next to it, and there's a climber in one of these trees, I don't know which one, but down at the bottom of the tree, and there's a cell cam next to that one, a different brand. I mean, are these guys hunting right next to each other, holding hands? Or, you know, I've seen a lot of pressure right here. I haven't really seen mature bucks here. We're using this as an example. Mm-hmm. We'll get more into the stuff where I've hunted mature bucks when we get further back in that spot by the road, right? But I'm using this as an example because it's a good point to look at, right? Mm-hmm. But this does get bedded by the younger deer, like 2-year-olds and stuff. And what you'll find is like we looked at this whole marsh. I could probably, because I pretty much grew up here, right? We looked at this whole marsh. I could probably show you 100 buck bedding areas that tore up with buck rubs. We could probably count on my 2 hands which ones of them mature bucks use. As they get older, they start to learn what keeps them alive, and they get really picky about where they bed. They're easier to hunt than the small bucks, if you ask me. Like a 2 or 3-year-old, they're easier to hunt because they're more predictable. They're harder to hunt because those spots are usually really hard to kill them in. You know, that there's a reason they pick that spot.
So they're easy to find, but they're hard to hunt.
Correct.
Once you can identify them, then they'll be able to focus in on it.
You should see when I do a seminar, people get upset when I say they're easier to get onto. Because you're like almost saying they're stupid because they can't get on them, but I'm not. They're easier to find, they're hard to kill. The hardest part you guys are going to have is most people lock onto sign. As you saw, like when we walked the first place, the only place we saw a hunter sign was right where the giant rub was. You find a giant rub, there's going to be a tree stand there. And if that worked, everybody'd be killing giant bucks. It obviously don't work, but that's what you see. But if you think about how a deer lives, these mature bucks are, you know, like I said, I'm seeing them get up a half an hour before daylight, and by the time they get 75 yards to me, it's almost closing time. So the rubs in between there, the scrapes in between there, are daylight. The other 95% of his sign is at night. So if you're just looking at sign, you're not doing yourself any favors. When I see big buck rubs out in the woods, what that tells me is there's a big buck around here. It doesn't tell me that that's the spot to hunt. My scouting will find the buck. My knowing how deer use terrain to bed will find the bucks. But all my hunting revolves around bedding. Like, even look at how low that is. Below my knee there's probably a 1.5-year-old buck. So if it gets up into here, it's usually like a 2-year-old. Starts getting up into here, like in 3-ish. When it starts getting up, the center of the rub is up here. Hopefully we'll run into some of those today. When its center gets up into here of the rub portion, it's usually a mature buck. They rub higher up on the trees. I don't know if that's 100%, but it's pretty accurate. Close. Yeah, where I'm killing these big bucks, I have all those rubs that are high like that. And I've actually done studies with it with trail cameras and stuff too, and it seems to relate, the height of the rub relates to the size of the buck.
I like how in that video too, you're talking about how when the bucks come through the cattails, that the big racks, like you could tell the different paths of like.
Yeah, because they break the antlers up.
Yeah.
You'll see some of that when we're going through the cattails, and you're going on a deer trail, and you're pushing through, and the cattails are this wide. No racks are going through that. Nothing that you're interested in. This probably seems a little aggressive to some of you because they're going to be bedded right along the point here under those trees that are 50, 75 yards out. But I think I can sneak along here pretty quietly. The only thing that'll kill me is if I jump a bunch of does up here. A lot of times the does will bed a little higher than the bucks, so they bed about where the water stops and it's drier. Because when they bed, if they bed in a group, they tend to bed in a circle fashion up a little higher and each watch a different direction, so a better spot for them would be up here. When they bed 1 or 2, they bed right in the buck beds. The same as them. I'll have does come out of beds that I've had bucks come out of in the past. The difference will be 1 or 2, where the ones that, when they bed in a group of like 5, 6 of them, they'll be up in a spot like this. Now, we don't have that many does right now that we have those groups bedding up here, so usually it's pretty easy for me to sneak into these spots, but occasionally I'll blow a few of them. That doesn't mean my hunt's over either. Those deer jump around, move around a lot, and a buck will just lay there, hear something, and not move. I've had them where you kick a doe, and you see him jump up and take off. And I've had it where you jump a bunch of does, they run right through the bedding area, and 2 hours later the buck gets up and comes right in. So it's not 100% that you lose your hunt. So I'd still hunt it, but I would get into about this position, and I find that the predominantly downwind points have better buck bedding than the ones that would be predominantly upwind, right? But that doesn't mean they're not here when the wind's in your favor. So pretty much a west wind will blow down this point. So if it was northwest, I'd find a tree over in here someplace. If I get away with it, maybe that willow tree's got some cover, but I gotta be able to climb it quietly too. You can't sit out here with a saw if a deer's bedded right there, right? Or I'd get over here if the wind's blowing off that way. I'd look at the angle and I'd try to stay that angle on the way back. You know, if it's a hunting situation and I was over there walking, I saw this point and thought, I'm gonna check that out. I'm probably gonna follow the sign back for a ways. But once I determine I'm hunting this, I'm getting to the predominantly downwind side. Then if there's even a swirl, at least it's floating off that way, right? And your thermals are gonna pull towards the water. They don't pull far. The closer you are to the water edge, the more they're gonna pull out for those cattails instead of, you know, dropping in here and kind of floating around. So I'm gonna try and stay to the sides, which is hard because all these ash trees are dying, right? So it's not easy. So a lot of times I'll sit back, like we're 50 yards back, and really be contemplating what tree am I gonna take? And kind of make a way to it, and then you look at it again and say, okay, now the angle's wrong. Now what tree? And just kind of working my way in, so I'm not walking all over the place. And because if a deer comes through you don't want to shoot and it hits your scent, it's gonna freak. So that's another reason to stay off the trail if you can, or just take it into a point and then draw off, because if he spooks up there further, it's better than if he spooks right next to the next deer coming, right?
So that was going to be my question, is you're avoiding, or you're trying to work the edges depending on the wind to avoid them scenting you in the middle, or trying to expect them to work that downwind edge as they're coming to the food?
I don't necessarily think they're going to work that downwind edge.
Okay.
They're going to take the main trail they come out on.
Okay.
As you can see that this trail's been used for years, right up the middle.
And you see the mature bucks just following the same trail that everybody else does.
They might have a little different trail,
Okay.
but it usually ain't going to be far off. I mean, if you kind of look over there, what the hell are they going to walk through?
Sure.
I do kind of find that, contrary to popular belief, that the mature bucks kind of take the main trail because they really can't get through those thicker crap. You know, the racks and stuff. Yeah. Especially if you're talking a 25-inch wide or 20-inch wide buck. Getting through this crap is not easy. So they go through kind of a opener area. They just don't move far in daylight. That's the big difference. So one thing I'll do too when I come to a spot like this, I would creep up to this tree really quietly. I'd get my stand off, set it down real quietly, take it apart. I got a system to it, like I'll have my screw that holds my sticks together. Always leans against the tree so I can find it easy. My hooks always go right there, and then I'll get the first stick on right here. The first one, the bottom step is always knee high because that's my stride. And then I have my sticks in a way that when I lay my next one on there, the top of it is where I put the bottom of the next stick. So I'll put 2 sticks up from ground level. And I'm usually only 3 or 4 sticks up. So I really don't go up and down trees like you'd think. So I just ease up like 1 step and I get the next stick on, right? But on this side of the tree, so I got this for cover, and I'm watching the other side and kind of determining how high I can get and looking what I got for clearance for shooting. And then when I get to the height I want to be, I take the stand up with one strap on, and I slide it around, and I hook it on, facing the deer, so I have the tree to my back as they're coming. And then I just roll around the tree and step into it and pull my bow up with the rope. So it's really I'm kind of keeping the tree for cover, basically, and just rolling around it, and then I have the tree behind me for cover when I shoot. Now if you're saddle hunting, you just stay on this side.
What's really going to determine your height?
My height's going to be determined by shooting lanes and by how high I can get with the buck not seeing me. If he's in those cattails, he can look out and see you if you get too high.
Okay.
Which I've had happen. You're climbing and they jump up and run off.
Yep.
But that's another thing that I can't say enough. That when you're doing this, you're gonna jump bucks occasionally. And when you do, you're gonna get pissed off and you go, Dan is an asshole, right? But you gotta remember that when you do that, that means you're getting in the right range. You're gonna have to jump and spook some bucks every now and then, or you're not getting close enough. You're just not. You're gonna have to have some problems with it, you know? Because otherwise you're not getting in that range where they move in daylight. So I'm really pushing that window, is my point. Really careful about every detail of what I do, to climbing a tree, to everything.
And you're fine with just that, that one tree in the middle of nowhere that's enough backdrop, as long as you're in line with where you think he is.
I've killed trees out of telephone poles in the middle of cattails. I'll take this tree, when that deer's coming in, you're the deer, I'm right here. I'll get turned sideways in that tree and just look like the tree, and I take the limb and I block my face, because that's usually what they see is my face.
Yeah, weights or something.
And the very first shot I have, as soon as he gives me a shot, I pull back and I shoot. And the reason for that is they are very inept at picking you off. So the very first shot I have that's ethical and I'm confident I'll kill him, I'm taking. But I'm watching him the whole time, and no matter what he does, I'm on him with that bow ready. And I'm blocking my face, just slowly moving with him, and trying to keep the tree in line, so when he looks up, he just sees one line. And the reason I get away with a telephone pole in the cattails, I never hunted that before. Nobody's ever hunted that before. The buck don't expect it. He's walked through there a million times. It's like you walking into your kitchen. Do you expect someone to be standing on your kitchen table? He might get away with it if you don't look there.
Right.
Just because you're not expecting it, And that's what I'm doing, is I'm getting away with it because of that. But occasionally I do get busted. But if I don't push those envelopes, I don't kill big bucks. Just wanted to point out, this is a little better rub. See how high it is?
Yeah.
That's in that range where.
So you're talking like basically the center of the rub.
Center of the rub, right? Yeah. A lot of people confuse that and they'll go, yeah, we got pines hitting way up here, which makes a difference. But that isn't what I'm looking at. I'm looking at that height.
Yeah, because it just makes sense. The older they are, the taller they're going to be.
Yeah.
Dan, you talk about the height of the rub.
Yeah.
The diameter of the tree correlate at all, or
I can tell you, I personally watched a spike rub a tree this big.
Yeah, I don't think that is.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of small bucks rub big trees. Matter of fact, when you look at bedding areas, what'll fool a lot of people is they'll want to hunt the bedding area that's the most tore up. That's usually 2-year-olds. 2-year-olds are the most aggressive buck out there. They actually do the most breeding. And they will rip up everything in sight. They're like your 18-year-old kid first getting into the bars with the girls, right? Or now it's 21, right? I'm an old timer. But they're like that young guy, out girl chasing, right?
Yeah.
Where the older guys are a little more, in tune. But yeah, they're the ones that rip up the most trees, and they'll rip up big trees. But you'll see that rubbing the center will be down here, knee high, for a 2-year-old.
And that's in
Time
like
period would you say this is from?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's
What time period is that from?
I think it's pretty early. Looking at the gouges in here, there's no color to it or anything. It's all faded. Where I think if that was November, there'd be a lot more orange in there.
Okay. So something I'm struggling with, trying to identify the time period.
I'm sure we'll see some more, some November rubs through here, and I'll point it out if I can remember. You'll see the color difference.
Cool.
At this point, it kind of drops into water. This actually gets kind of deep in here, and there's a little island there. I've actually done fairly well on that island over the years. I haven't hunted it much recently, but I've had some pretty good encounters in there. So right here you start hitting water. This gets a lot of pressure. But if you look at this stuff, I mean, you see that bush out here? That's actually in water, but because it's a bush, there's going to be some ground around it that's high. So typically there'll be beds under that stuff. So that's something I would look at. I mean, again, this I know gets a lot of pressure. I mean, I've seen guys right here hunting coming in and out, as I typically use this for my access. So again, it's more example, but there should be some beds underneath that. There's a island over there, and there's an island right up here. The island up here is all ash, it's all dead, so it hasn't had leaves on it in quite a while. So they don't bed on that as much as they used to. Now they mainly bed over there. But it used to be there was two trails that came in, one came in here, one came in there. And when this is being used, it could be either or, and sometimes both that were being bedded by bucks. Like they might be in two different spots, and you'd have come from two different directions. And again, if you look around, these are the only oak trees around. So when these are dropping, it would be a good spot. But we also had action in here during rut. One of the hunts we did back when I used to guide, early 2000s, I took a guy out here. I had him in this trio of oaks there, and he had a buck get up right at the end of those trees, those dead trees. I wish the time we're alive.
Just like right here.
Yeah, so within shooting range. After he had set up his stand and stuff after I left, got up, came in. It was a really nice 8-pointer, about 18 inches wide. Shot right underneath this tree, but it was bedded right there.
Wow.
Never knew he set up. So we were talking about how close you can get. He literally, if there was nothing in the way, he could have shot it from the tree where it was bedded, and never knew he was there. There was one time I was hunting a really big 8-pointer out here. It was probably close to 170 inches. It was a lot of people were hunting it. It was running around here. Everybody had camera pictures of it and stuff. It was before cell cams, but everybody still had trail cams. And I had quite a few run-ins with them out here. One of them was here, and what I will do is, like, if I know there's a big buck in an area like this, I will hunt down every buck bedding area that I scouted in there that I think he could be at, one after another, until I run into him or I run out of spots. It's usually how I do it. And I actually, if I go 10 hunts without seeing him, I'm thinking, all right, now I'm getting close. Where most people get depressed by that.
Right.
Once you get your scent in an area like this, he's not bedding there. Now where is he? You know, you eliminate it. You eliminate the area and hunt them down. But I came into here and I got set up, and again, it seems like on high water years, they don't bed on the islands, they bed on the perimeter, right on the edge of this area, which took me a little time to put that together. But he was bedded right in the brush there on the trail that goes to that island, and he got up and he seemed to know I was here. I think he heard me. Now I was back here, I think I was in this tree. But he got up and he came into here but out of range, and then moved off that way, and I had no shot. But that was a monster of a buck. The most memorable hunt in this spot, I came back here this many years ago, probably 25 years ago. I came in here and it was winter time, it was late season, and I was walking that trail just trying to cut a track. It snowed all night, and I was going to try and follow it back to bedding and hunt it. And the other side of this road, there's some fields, and it was all corn. And out of that corn was coming a fresh set of tracks coming this way. You know, it stops snowing just before daylight, and there's a fresh set coming, and I tracked them all the way through here, and he went right up the trail that goes towards that island. And I thought this is a good spot to set up for him. And I took a climber and I climbed the poplar tree. I don't know if it was this one, there used to be two of them. One of them fell down. But I climbed way up as high as I could get with a lone wolf climber, facing the tree, facing my back that way, and turned around, and that buck was bedded on the point, like where the trio of trees comes out, right in the point, looking at me like this. And me and him stared at each other for the rest of the night. He never moved, and I didn't move till it was dark.
As you went up that high, the skyline here.
Correct.
Okay.
A big part of it's going to be looking at cover.
Okay.
So, or not cover, but terrain.
Yeah.
Because the trees or bushes show me where there's high ground,
Okay. For sure.
which is where they're going to be bedding. Other than that, I'll use I'll use different apps like Onyx, and I'll zoom in and look at deer trails, and you'll see the trails all spider into spots where there's deer bedding. And there are spots like what you're thinking where it's dry ground and they're bedding in cattails and you can't see it. You kind of got to just find those. The best way is with aerials, but some of it's walk. But there's spots out here that I know that are a long ways from any tree that are incredible bedding areas. Try to kill a deer out of them though. You know, when it's cattails this high, how do you shoot? You know, but there are really good bedding areas that are like what you're describing. But you kind of got to just find those. But aerials will usually you can find some sort of map tool that'll show it. Whether you go on old Google Earth maps, where you can go back in time, date-wise, until you find the right image, or you use Onyx, or you use Spartan Forge, or whatever you use, zoom in and look at the trails, the deer trails. Deer trails and the cattails do not change much, at all. I mean, I use the same trails to navigate to spots out here that I've been using for 25 years. The only time they change is if you get a winter there, all the cattails get knocked down. See how they're knocked down right here? Then the deer will start, when they're coming through in winter, they'll start moving a little different, and the trail will change, but it'll still be in the general area. But for the most part, most of the cattails stand straight up like that. Those trails stay in the same spots year after year after year after year. You notice all those bigger ones are all that same height. It looks like about a 3-year-old height. So there's one decent buck out here. If he made it, he's really going to be a good one this year.
That mold in the center too, or whatever, the dark spot.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see something like that too. Especially if you see poplars, you'll see mold dots. These black dots on them. They only mold when it's hot out. So you know it was earlier in the season.
So my question is now to you is, are you going to try to hunt that buck, knowing that okay, that might be a 4-year-old? Do you ever know the buck you're hunting?
Yeah, most of the time, if it's a mature buck, I know the buck I'm hunting.
So you know the buck.
But in a lot of cases like this, I mean, if I do see some good sign, I'll go look for it. You know,
okay.
I don't know that buck made it though, for sure.
Correct.
So now, like you guys, if you're out looking for sign, you probably don't have the area scouted that I have. Right, for sure, you wouldn't be here. So you're gonna find sign like this and you're gonna want to hunt it. What I'll do is I'll come back in an area later. I'll have that stuff in mind, and I'll throw some hunts at those bedding areas, but I'll be looking for sign at the same time. So if I'm not seeing any sign that buck made it, I might just move on, or I might come back and throw a hunt at it later. But I'm not going to put a lot of time into something that I don't know for sure is alive.
Gotcha.
You know, maybe you might want some of you throw some cameras at it. You know, just some sort of confirmation, because a lot of these deer do get killed.
Right, now that's what was my question was, you know, you don't know that it's alive.
Right.
But you're looking for next year.
Yep.
So you're looking at the sign that was from this year, but we don't know if that buck is dead or alive. So that was my question.
No, you get in a 2-3-year-old range, a lot of them get killed. But literally, most of the mature bucks I'm hunting, I see them year after year after year, and I don't see them get killed.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not getting killed. I mean, there was a buck, not this last season, but the season before, that I ran into back here that I know is a buck I was hunting 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I can't believe he's still alive. I threw a camera at some sign and got a picture of him. I was like, oh my God, that thing's still alive. I don't know if he still is. Now it's been another 2 years. But those mature ones, they have a knack for not getting killed.
Mm-hmm.
Not by me, not by anybody. You know, when I get lucky, it comes together and I get one of them. But for the most part, most of those bucks, if I see him the year before, I'm pretty sure he's still alive the next year. But that 3-year-old, 2-year-old, I'm not sure. But I would throw some cameras just to make sure, or I'd go by with a spotlight, which is legal here, see if he's around during the night, that kind of stuff. What we're doing is we're covering a couple miles really quick. And basically, I'm looking at all the best stuff. I'm looking at the edge. And if you walk that whole edge and you don't find the signs you're looking for, and you know there's a big buck there, you walk through his sign. You're just not recognizing it. So that makes it a little easier, because you know the spots you're looking through is where he lives. You know, if you're finding the sign, you know he's on that property. You know you walk through it. It's just a matter of recognizing it. So it's going to be terrain based. I mean, some of the really biggest bucks I've ever shot came out of spots where they bedded all the time, and there were no rubs, there were no scrapes. Something to keep in mind. I mean, just like you guys, I like seeing that stuff because it's the confidence builder. But you got to get a little comfortable with being uncomfortable in order to be successful. You kind of got to get out of that mindset that everybody else is in. Because again, if it's those big rubs that kill the bucks, everybody'd be killing them because everybody sees them. So when we walk through this woods, all we're going to do is that edge. I could care less if there's rubs, sign, and whatever you're going to see in the middle of that. And as a matter of fact, that's just confusing. You know, most people that ask me to look at a property, you know, usually it's like when you're out with your family or something and you're at dinner and some guy gets up from the table and I say, hey, Dan, big fan, can I show you a map? He's probably trying to eat a steak, you know. Trust me, it happens. But you look at their phone, and quite often I'm like, holy crap, it's just a wall of points. And like, what am I looking at? Well, the blue ones are all the rubs I found, and the red ones are the scrapes, and like, holy crap, you know, what do I care about any of that for? Where do they bed? You know, that's what I want to see. The rest of that is irrelevant because you're not going to kill them after dark. So I'm concentrating on where you know, it has relevance, don't get me wrong. If you know where they're feeding, you know how they're traveling there and stuff. But the thing you need to learn first is where do they live. Because the rest, you know, a lot of times you're going to be guessing where they feed based on what you saw or whatever, and you're wrong. You know, they eat so much crazy crap that you wouldn't realize it. Most of their diet is browse. And none of us can probably look at the plants and tell each other what they are. I think a biologist would have a hard time. And they'll specifically target certain plants and stuff. We don't know what they are, but we know where they bed. And if we put a timing in there and we can figure things out, that's what kills them. So literally, when you look at a place like this, you look at that edge, right? And now here's the part I wanted to get into is the reason we're doing this in a marsh, and the reason I like this particular workshop better than I like doing it in big woods or like doing it in a real swamp or in farmland, is because this teaches you how to look at a terrain. Because deer bed the same everywhere. As somebody pointed out, the points are the same as in hill country, right? But when you look at this, it lays out so easy to see. Because you can look at a map, you can see the cattails to the trees, right? And you go, oh, okay, there's a point. Now, if this was solid tamaracks, that point coming down out of that island there would still be the best spot. Better than all this. It's the terrain break, it's the change, right? These little points coming out here would still be the spots, even though this was solid tamaracks. And what'll get you is you can walk through there, you can probably find beds in the middle of those cattails. If those tamaracks, you can probably find beds in the middle of those tamaracks. That's not where the mature bucks are bedding. Like I said before, as they grow older, they learn to bed only in certain spots. So figuring out how they bed is the key. So when you look at that terrain, you can see it real well in a marsh. It's like beginner 101. But if you change this to swamp, or you change this to big woods, or you change this to farm, it's going to lay out kind of the same. It's just a matter of this teaches you how to look at it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. There's a finger that comes out here. On onyx, you see it real well. So you'd think it'd get more pressure. It does get some though. But this spot has been pretty good. When I first noticed it, there was a lot of heavy rubs coming out of there, coming up this point. If you look around, you can see all the scarred trees. For whatever reason, maybe there wasn't a good oak crop last year, there isn't any rubbing right now. But generally when these acorns are dropping, there's a lot of rubs right in this area. I don't think there was last year though, was there?
There wasn't much.
Yeah, but every now and then this will just be tore up when there's a good acorn year. So that caught my eye. Now, if there's acorns dropping here, and there's rubs under the acorns, they're from earlier in the year, what time do you think they're bedding down there?
Early season.
Yeah, early season, right? So I hunted that for like 15 or 20 years. And I had some decent action in early season. We never really killed much, but we had some encounters and some close calls. Seen some bucks that we passed. But it wasn't until I did that bed study and I dropped some cameras down here that I realized that this is a way better rut spot. And that's what I mean, is sometimes you get it wrong. These rubs are made during when the acorns are dropping, but the deer had 2 different distinct bedding times when they're down there. And the area isn't tore up with rubs, but there's really like one spot to bed, you know. There's usually some rubs down there. I don't know what we're gonna run into. I didn't walk this yesterday, but there's usually some good rubs in there that give you an indication, but not a lot. But there also has been some people hunting it now. It's going to give you a good look at a good bedding area that I know good bucks were bedded in last year, and you're going to get to see how much sign there is. And it's a pretty good example. This is that woods I was telling you about. This island is huge, and this fills up with guys, and nobody hunts these points. It just amazes me. But there'll be guys all over the place in here hunting every scrape and rub you see. You just see a couple of those little mold dots on here. There's Kyle. You see a couple of them on here, but this has a lot of orange in it. That's probably like October, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I learned that they bed here every year, not just acorn years, during the rut, right? And what it was with the rut is there's a doe group that beds in here every year, all year. And that doe group would always be down here. And I was jumping those does too, coming in here. But those does would live here all the time, so rut would bring those bucks in bedding for rut time. Make sense?
Yep.
Points will taper down and there'll be brush pockets out there, so the bedding will be over a bigger area. Where right here, it really kind of drops in, so the bucks kind of bed right on the point of this tip. So they're right here. So we're gonna go in around this side, look at the beds, I'll point them out. Think about all the sign you saw here. This is bucks coming in and out of this bedding. And look at the bedding, and it might give you a different idea of how much sign you see around bedding. There's always a bed right here, right there, you see the circle up. There's a bed right here. Here. This one has a rub in the bed.
Oh yeah.
You see the limb hanging over the bed? Telling you it's a buck bed. You can see the rub right in it. There. You see the rub right in the bed in there. See the rubs right in the bed right here. And generally there's a good bed right there too. In the past those things were ripped up, but you can see it historical, but they're not ripped up this year. See, this is historical. There's a rub right here.
That's a good rub. That's a good rub.
There was one particular doe used to bed right here all the time. Quite often I'd kick him out of here and the bucks would still come. But what I noticed is if you take a spot like this and you sneak in here real quiet to not spook anything, you get to about this point and some doe jumps up running and just blowing and you ruin it. But if you come down that hill not being quiet until you get down here, those does just filter off and the buck can't see it. He's in that thick cover in the end. Right? Does bed further back. Right? They'll notice you coming. They're monitoring the hillside. The buck's gonna be tucked on that point a little bit, right? So this is an odd point because it goes into the wind, the predominant wind, which is good for hunting it. But like I said before, most of the ones that point the other way usually tend to be better. So when I've hunted this, and I normally hunt this, that tall tree right there, the one that kind of just gets kind of skylit. I think last time we were in here, somebody had put a spruce up and it looked like it's gone now. But that's the one right there. Is where I tend to hunt because I could shoot across to that side and I could shoot over here. This is normally where I see them, but sometimes they snake around and go along that side there. But I could shoot everything in here from there. And I mean, literally, if you're a really good bow shot, you can shoot them when they stand up if there's no brush. You gotta remember too that buckthorn, that's just a wall of green. All you gotta worry about is noise. The wind's in your favor, it's just noise. If you come in quiet, if you're real worried about it, wait for a breezy day.
Well, we only lost one.
This area, typically the bigger animals hold up out here. So people just don't come past that tree line. But the last couple of years I ran into pressure here. I was real happy to see that that trail doesn't look like it was used by people. It looks like it was by deer, because otherwise it'd be busted more open. Because your average guy can't hunt a spot like this once. They would come back here constantly, you know what I mean? And the trick for me for this to be successful is to hunt it once and then not come back till the next year, or hunt it maybe a month later once. So this area too, they seem to winter back here. I've probably found more giant sheds on this island than any place else in this whole marsh, so keep your eyes open. They typically, when they bed in here, right now they're bedding in the middle of this island, right where you see that heavy brush, but they typically in the past have bedded out here. I've had a lot of interactions with giant bucks here. This it's like, if you're looking at where I had the confrontations, it's either right next to the road or way to hell back. But it's where people don't go. That's the key. You know, and I like coming out here every spring because it gives me a monitor if somebody's been here. You know, we've been here, and a couple of years ago we came out here and there's 3 trail cameras on the island. You know, sometimes you get out here and there ain't been anybody for a while. Because what happens is a guy finds the spot, he sees all the rubs, he sees all the sign, and he's like, holy crap. And then he sits here and he sees a buck, and he never leaves. He sets up a trail to it, he makes a trail, he puts in a bunch of cameras, and the deer go away. And literally, you'll see a guy hunt here for 2-3 years straight, and I'll monitor because I want to come back and hunt it, right? And when you finally see a guy leave, the next year won't be good. The year after that, they'll be just starting to come back. And it takes about 3 years before mature bucks are using it again. Maybe they got to grow into it. I don't know. You know what I mean? Because they got to grow up knowing there's no pressure here. I don't know. But it takes a while after the pressure leaves for them to come back.
For perspective, it took us less than 10 minutes to go 3/8 a mile. When it's not frozen, how long will this slog take?
You wouldn't even be able to see this island. You'd be walking in knees in water.
So that's over an hour to go from here to there.
Yeah, you're going to get water in your boots. Yeah. But it's not a fun trek by any means for anybody. So I'm just really used to this stuff where most people aren't. But like I said, you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So these islands and stuff are where you're going to find a lot of your good bucks. The hardest part about this is killing them. I mean, these bucks now are living right on this island. You walk on here, you kick them off. So the last really good chance at a deer I had, I walked on the island here, I got about 10 steps past here, and a big buck got up right there, ran across in front of me, went in, and I felt like he never saw me, and I went to set up, and he came back, and I almost killed him when he came back, but he circled downwind, and he busted me.
So you think he got up and took off just because he heard something?
Correct.
He never physically.
And he didn't come back to bed because he came back at dark.
He came back. He came back to check out what was going on there.
Correct.
I think that happens more than we think, because that could be a coyote in his mind, and they're always hunting them.
Right.
So they'll come back sometime.
Right. Right here, the center portion that's bared is really high, waist high. That's like a mature buck. But it's also got rubbing down here that's centered. I think this is more than one buck rubbed this.
You think that'd be more like November, like later season?
What? Yeah, it's still got a lot of color, and there's no molding in there or anything. I think that's November. That's rut time.
Oh man, it's gouged way up here.
Yeah. That one over there, even though it's lower, has a lot of, you can see the bark up high, so it had high tines. But a 2-year-old can have high tines. But I could pinpoint on a map exactly where the buck bedding areas are in those open cattails. And every year it's the exact same spots. For whatever reason, they prefer that spot. I find that fascinating. But anywho, coming through here, I was looking at everything, trying to figure out some way to hunt that buck. And what I had in mind was there's a spot off the pond where there's low cattails in between bedding. And I was thinking maybe I could take a canoe, get to the edge of this cattails, slide into that spot, and be able to shoot him with a bow from a stool. I was looking, I couldn't really get a setup, and I kept looking around trying to find some sort of setup and wandering around. I wandered into this, and I looked at that and I thought, and you really can't see this on a map. Maybe you can now, I mean pictures have gotten better, but at that time I couldn't see this on an aerial. But I had been here before just differently. But looking at this I think, you know, that could hold a deer. I went over to look at it, and what I found was the whole back side of that was there's beds. And then looking at those beds, every one of them was tore up with rubs in the bed. You didn't really have a height thing on the rubs, but you had, because it's just bushes, right? But you had them twisted off, big diameter and stuff. And you could see the size of the beds and stuff. And what caught my eye is anything big out here that was bedding here was probably bedding in that spot at some point. So then you had to put your detective hat on. When? Well, that willow brush that's in there loses its leaves in like October, real early for the bushes out here. So I know, you know, come November, there's no leaves on those trees. So all that rubbing had to be done after antlers hardened, and you know, so I know it's not summertime, right? And before, you know, that leaf drop, because they're not going to bed in the open sun. They'd move into the cattails. They're going to have some sort of cover, some sort of shade cover. So it gave me a very short window when they can be bedded. So then I just followed the trail out, which just kind of goes straight to that point. And most of that is private. So getting back there is a pain in the ass, because all those poplars and stuff over there you see are private, and the private land juts out into the cattails and goes over. So, and that guy isn't the friendliest guy in the world. I'll tell you some stories someday. But so how do you get in there? You know, if you're gonna hunt right there and that's your access, how do you get past these bucks? So I came to the borderline, had a trail like to come through the water this deep, take the corner, go over to the trees, come up and come from the back and set up. But I have to go kind of past this buck on that side. Now you back a ways, but going through water that deep is noisy. So I figured I needed a brisk north wind. You know, so the first day we set up on this spot, the very first brisk north wind, after I figured out the tree and stuff, when I got in there, I got set up, I had a fawn get up 15 yards from me. I went in there, set up a stand, got set up, and an hour later this fawn just pops up right beside me, starts feeding, never knew I was there. And then a doe 20 yards in front of me gets up. Then she comes in right underneath me, and if you watch the video, you saw her see my sticks, then see me and spook. You know, and then I left it alone for a year. Well, I hunted it the next day. Just in case I didn't that deer up too bad, I hunted it the next day and he didn't come back. And then I left it alone for a season. And that's the balls you got to get in order to kill these things, because if I came back and back and back, he'd have been checking. Now he sees it as like, okay, something wasn't right here. He'd come back and check, and when he catches you, then he's gonna, you know, he's gonna freak out and not come back at all. So I left it alone for a whole season, and the next year came back in that first brisk north wind and killed him. So it's not as like, you can't be like overly aggressive at it. It's like overly aggressive on the spots, but it's about timing, and it's really not as aggressive as people think it is. Some little rubs back there. Here's a pretty good rub bed right here. Little tiny rubs in it though. Bed right here. Bed right there.
Yep. That's all snapped up.
Yeah, this is all rubbed up. Broken tree here. Go low. Bed here. Bed here. Trail coming out of there. And it came to a heavy trail which just went straight in here to this point. So that was my setup. Look how wide this trail is. And look, if you look at head high, how many of these cattails have broken off. If it was a doe trail, it'd be real thin and narrow. This too is, actually this gets really deep. There were spots in here when I went through during the summer where I went to my waist, right on this trail that we're walking. But you can see this is busted down. This ain't from people. People don't walk through here. Yeah. My tree is, I think, the highest one in there, the one I hunted out of. And that fawn got up like where that tree is that's got the little like seeds on it. And I was sitting right there. So that buck came through here like this. That's a pretty high rub.
Yeah.
Walked right through here like this. And right here's where I pulled the bow back and it clicked. So if you look at this side of the tree here, I've hunted this tree 3 times.
Those beet sticks are really eating it up.
Yeah, so right after the hunt, as soon as the video aired, where you shot that buck, he said, I scouted that spot and I was going to hunt there too. He goes, I found that spot, same as you. I found that island and everything. And, you know,
Yeah.
so I just ignored him, right? So he started sending me all these messages and I just ghosted him because obviously he's lying, right?
Yeah.
So I get another message from him and I'd read the message, I just wouldn't respond. He said, I went out there and found your arrow for you. I saw in the video you didn't recover your arrow. I'm like, what the hell? He goes, I put it on your porch and I go outside and it's leaning against the porch. I'm like, I was creeped out.
Yeah, man.
And it was my arrow. And I came out here and all that grass was missing over there. He like dug through the grass to find it. And it was just crazy. We couldn't find it with the dog.
He said, I'm gonna get this guy to respond to me one way.
It was crazy.